My name's Chris.
And I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast, and we're back for an interview. Now, we missed last week. People noticed we missed last week.
Yeah, well, we were busy.
We were busy. You were doing things. I was doing things. I was flying to Tasmania. You were not flying to Tasmania.
I did 3 performances in a whole week.
3. It was a big week for you. However,
yes, it's an even bigger week.
We don't leave a person behind. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Galya.
Welcome.
Hello.
It is fantastic to get to speak to you. Disappointed we didn't get to do it last week, but, you know, life and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's very much, we're very glad to be able to get you on today.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on your show.
So, sort of starting off, what I sort of wanted to start off talking about is that one of the things that seemed to be your strength and your sort of passion was about the creativity and design side of the baking as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where did that sort of come from? And is that something that you sort of felt going in you were going to lean on a bit?
Yeah. Well, I've always liked doing like creative concepts and things like that, thinking of things that haven't been done and, you know, how I sort of bring that in. Mm-hmm. So whenever so I bake for a bit of a living as well. Yeah. So whenever somebody comes and gives me an order or something, I always dig in and, you know, ask them what is their favorite color, what is their favorite concept, what do you like to eat? Like in general, what are their hobbies and how do I create that into, for example, a cake? So I sort of dig into all those details and come up with a concept and draw it and sort of bring it into life and do research into new techniques of how I can execute that. So that's like my passion, to be honest. And that's what I try to bring through the Bakeoff as well. So yeah.
Is there anything that's been really challenging, like someone who likes like deep sea fishing, but also modernist art or something like it?
Yeah, sometimes I mean I have to make sure that I can deliver it in a sort of artsy way. It has to look pretty, right? So I try to steer clear of things that, you know, I feel like might not really get delivered well. So I try my best to make it as pretty as possible. And make
when
it
a bloke
cool.
that comes and goes, I just want a cake that's an ode to concrete. I just love concrete.
I was going to say
actually you can do that. You can do a concrete texture.
Yeah,
that's
and
true.
it looks amazing on cakes. I think that's quite in now. So yeah,
it was
Canadian.
Yeah,
Tim,
right?
I
think it was Canadian. Was it Tim? I wasn't Tim.
No,
it was we'll remember it anyway. But yeah, one of the ones a Canadian did that, where he did a full concrete.
That's right.
Yeah, it looked amazing.
Right.
You know,
okay, so concrete wouldn't be challenging.
Yeah, probably like like Nerman's sort of favorite thing. You know, the Bauhaus School of Design.
Okay,
you know, just very dark architecture. And it's like, okay, let's make it pretty. If there's one thing we know about Bauhaus School of Design, it's pretty. But that was something that sort of became a bit of a strength, and especially when, you know, I'm going to start at sort of Winter Week, actually, where I'm going to start, because I think Winter Week was a really good week for you in terms of, first of all, that showstopper that you presented sort of, I think, really turned things around for you a little bit. It had a bit of a bumpy ride with a couple of bits of timing, and we'll talk about the timing thing in a minute.
No, I feel you.
Yeah, we'll talk about the timing in a minute as well, because, again, that's something I think a lot of people experience regularly, that whole timing thing, and you really focused hard on that one. But the design on that pie in particular was just superb, and I think that sort of started to turn it around for you a bit.
That was actually my favorite showstopper, I think, overall, if I take it, apart from the bread mask. But that was really like, when I heard about the concept and I heard winter, for me, winter meant I was brought up in Sri Lanka, right?
Okay.
So winter didn't mean winter to me. Like, it's not snow. I have never seen snow for my life. Like, I went to see snow and I saw ice, so I still haven't seen proper. I think I have, but I can't remember it. I mean, when I was like 2 years old, I saw snow, but I can't remember it.
Not as impressive as people say, by the way. Not as impressive.
Just really.
That's what I hear. And then, so when somebody says winter to me, it reminds me of Christmas, because that's what we see on movies. I mean, from where I was before, like I was in Sri Lanka, I'd see winter in movies, and it's mostly Christmas. Yes. So. But I wanted to steer clear of that. I wanted to do winter, but not Christmas, because in my head, I thought, okay, maybe everybody will think Christmas. So I don't know. I mean, obviously nobody did, but I thought everybody will. So then I steer clear of that.
But that's the tricky part too, and that's one of the tricky parts with like a Winter Week theme is I can see 100%, because again, whenever you look at media representations, and even in Australia, when you look at media representation, it's all Christmas because it's all the US stuff and all the British stuff. And,
Exactly.
Whenever we talk to, we've spoken to bakers from the UK, or whenever we talk to people from the UK, and, they go, well, what's an Australian Christmas like? And you've got to explain the idea of people not necessarily doing heavy roasts because, like, it's 45,
really fucking hot,
45 degrees.
Unless it's a barbecue or something.
Yeah, no, it's like you do a barbecue. You get a
fresh
cold roast,
seafood,
fresh seafood.
Yeah, seafood, yeah.
Oh.
And your ham's not baked. It's usually like cold, served cold, So with Sri Lanka and the seasons there, is there like a definite 4 seasons, or is it like more?
No, it's mostly monsoon. So that's rainy season and dry season kind of. And it gets really, really hot during the dry season. So it's also so we don't have snow, obviously. No snow, no cold weather, apart from the little bit of rain that we get, and it can be really bad. Like the rain can be really bad. It can flood, it can, get really heavy rains. And but apart from that, it's pretty non-wintry. I don't know how you call it, but but no, like 4 seasons.
No, that's I really love hearing about the different kind of because it affects the way that you eat, that you live, that you bake. Like I've just been watching this woman who moved to I think it was Iceland or something. She's like close to the North Pole, and she's like, so we're entering our 4 months of 24 hours sunlight. We have to adapt. And I'm like, holy, like a beautiful scenery. She goes, this is midnight and it's bright as day.
But that's also one of the other things that you see a lot more in things like Bakeoff than you do in other shows, is that background, that influence on climate, culture, all of those things. And we talk about culture a lot, but climate plays a massive role in that too, because, the way you bake and the stuff you bake. And that segues me into probably my personal favorite bake of yours of the whole series, which was also in this episode, funnily enough. I absolutely loved your signature because chili plus chili plus chili plus chili is a good time.
Yes.
And I really liked the way that you put the chili in there, and they're like, it's going to be hot. And they're like, we like that hot. It's going to be hot. Yep. And then they bit it and they're like,
that's the warning.
That's hot. That's really hot. And I was just sitting there going,
I did warn everybody, it's going to be really, really hot.
But again, that's also something that tends to be warmer climate.
The
food, because again, you're already sweating, and it does actually help a bit with the cooling.
And it's how our palates are developed. We love our chili. And we love all our flavors very strong, like sour, salt, all of the flavors have to be like punch in your face kind of strong, like honestly, like it has to be that strong. If not, it feels like we didn't have that meal. It does not fill up.
But that was why I said that was my favorite bake of yours, because just the punchiness and the strong flavors and the use of chili, and I'm like, that feels.
So I'm just imagining. So when we're kids, one of the quintessential things is like you lick you fight over who gets to lick the spoon or the beaters from the cake mix. I'm just imagining you and your brothers and sisters, if you've got them, like fighting over who gets to lick the chili paste bowl.
We might not do that actually. That would be a little too much. But batter definitely.
That was for me the whole part of that week, and we ignore the technical that week because that was we all know, but
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Who arranges carrots anyway? Body. But that week for me was sort of, for me it was the first week where it felt like you'd sort of worked out where you were having the slight issues that you'd been having in terms of your timings, and started to mentally, you could see you preparing, going, I'm going to get on top of the timings this week. This is where I'm going to focus it. And I really enjoy, after that, I think you were much stronger in there. Did it take a couple of weeks to sort of adapt to the timings and the pressure on that?
Yes, it did take me a bit of time to adjust, because I'm used to baking my own time. As you know, as everybody else.
We don't have cameras sitting around at home going quickly.
Exactly, and I'm not used to talking to cameras.
Waking up at what? 4
and working while I'm talking. So I'm like, am I putting the right thing while I'm talking? Am I cutting my fingers? That kind of thing. But once I got around to the technique, I felt more comfortable, definitely. And I started enjoying it. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna stress out anymore. I'm just gonna focus and do what I love. After all, I love baking, and I love creating things out of like bakes and food.
How did you get into baking? Has it just always been a thing that you've done, or what's kind of what's your journey?
Cliche words. We're in the cliches.
So my mom used to bake when we were small, me and my brother, and she used to make stuff for us to take to school. And we used to just loved obviously eating everything that she makes. So we used to make eclairs and cakes and rolls and so we have these like Sri Lankan rolls, which is like a deep fried crispy roll, which has like a really spicy like a not sardine, like a mackerel kind of mix in it, and it's so good. Like even today I'd like totally love it. It's such a good snack. And those kinds of things that she used to make it. And
sorry, keep going, girl.
No, sorry. And she used to make those things. So it's because of her that I started doing things on my own as well. And but it's not until I moved to Australia, which was in 2018, I properly started baking on my own. Before that, I did bake like, but it was more dessert cakes, only dessert cakes. So once I moved to Australia in 2018, I started baking on my own, like doing cakes and things like that. But it's mostly cakes. I have not baked anything else like properly. Everything else, every other type of baking I've tried has not been as successful as I want it to be. Like for example, profiteroles, they do not puff up. I don't know what's it me and profiteroles, honestly.
You need to just like do a little like offering to the pastry gods and the
there are two things that tend to be that sort of wizardry. It's profiteroles and scones. And
I'll teach you how to do scones. They're my specialty.
And I can teach you the profiteroles because it's the one thing I can do.
You guys,
but don't ask me for other things.
Here's the thing: scones are the only thing I can do. So.
I mean, that's the thing. So you do what you can. You sort of develop on your forte, and focus on that. And you just have to balance on everything else. I guess that's the whole essence of Bakeoff, that you have to make sure that as long as you have to develop your skill for everything else as well along the way. So I did sort of like a crash course on everything when I was getting ready for this. And it was so much like, because I was preparing, like, because I needed to test, because I hadn't really baked any of the other stuff that I'd done in the Bakeoff shed, to be honest. Only done cakes and only nailed cakes. Let me say it that way. I've only done cakes properly. Everything else has not been up to my mark. So it was all like very new. If it actually worked out in the shed, it probably was the first time.
But you know what? I think what's beautiful about that is that not like everything in life, like all of us have passions and loves that we do, but to have that opportunity to actually give yourself the impetus to take it further, to make yourself move out of your comfort zone. Like I do burlesque dancing, and like people think that's a big enough kind of like leap, but there's so much more to it. There's like choreography and like making your costumes. And before now, I've really outsourced people doing my sewing for me, and I'll stick the diamantes on and stuff, but I've just entered a competition that's forcing me to sew it myself and do stuff myself. So it's like I would never have pushed myself to do it if I didn't have the impetus. So I just love this beautiful space that creates for someone like yourself, and the other bakers can go in and you're like, I've nailed cakes. Now I'm going to have a crack at pies. Sure. Oh, I'm good.
And the other part to that too is the skill share that can happen in terms of when everyone gets together and you're struggling for this. I can give you an idea about this. That's something that's also.
That happens a lot in the Bakeoff shed. And if you're struggling with something, I remember how Neil went and helped out Reem to sort of temper the chocolate, because I don't know, I don't know I didn't know how to temper chocolate properly, and I learned it. I mean, I had to read something and learn it, but when you're actually doing it, it's kind of different. And when you learn it from someone then and there, it's even more different. Like then you're like, oh, that's how it happens, like it kind of clicks. So there was such a lot of knowledge sharing. If I'm struggling with something, I have no problem asking somebody, and anybody will just jump in to help. And it's such an amazing shed, and I just love the vibe of it.
Oh, beautiful. So Oh, Chris has got notes. I just get things off the top of my head, whatever pops in. So we might defer to the person who's going to keep us structured.
Well, what I want to talk about as well is now a bake it was an interesting bake. It was one that obviously meant a hell of a lot to you, which was the mask design in Biscuit Week. So what sort of Bread Week, sorry, what sort of prompted the mask, and was that always your first sort of plan for that design, or?
To be honest, I know it's not my first choice, but I can't remember what my first choice was, because these were all midnight decisions. Like after work, I'm preparing for this and I'm like, okay, what do I do? Okay, this is what I need to do, but what do I do?
Yeah.
Like in the middle of the night, and I need to get sleep and go to work the next day as well. So I was like, I have not baked bread in my life.
Yeah.
Like I have, and it has not been successful. So I don't want to own up to it. So I don't want to show about it, like, display. So then I'm like, what do I do with it? Like, how do I bring in something awesome? I thought of I really can't remember what the concept was. I thought of something and I was developing it and it was okay. And then obviously midnight decisions, you suddenly remember things in the middle of the night. You're like, oh, why don't I just do like the devil mask? Because the devil mask or the yaka mask in Sri Lanka is a big thing. It's quite underrated right now, to be honest. Now it's slowly coming out like as a cultural symbol. Lots of brands are using it. They're using it a lot more in our culture now than it used to be.
Okay.
It's a wooden mask technically that's sort of hung in like homes or homes that are being built, so that it sort of takes off the evil eye of anybody else, somebody who says, oh, that's a beautiful house. Instead of that, they'll actually look at the mask and say, there's a devil mask. I don't know, sort of take off the attention in a way. You know what I'm saying? So like that kind of thing. And there's also like rituals and stuff that uses the devil mask, and that has different versions of it. And the version I did was like the fire devil, which had those flames going out, which was the Grisini.
Yeah.
So that I wanted to create that. So when I wrote that recipe, I was like, what am I signing up for? Because I was like, I don't know how to bake bread. What am I doing? Like, but I trialed it at home. When I trialed it at home, I started it, I think, at around 4:00 in the afternoon. And then I went up till about 3:00 in the morning. I think.
And then you went, timing-wise, that doesn't work.
Sorry?
You're like, timing-wise, that's
yeah, exactly, right? So it was like a 12-hour trial, and I did not have time for any other trial. That was it.
Wow.
I knew it. But I was like, okay, I'm going to sign up for it. If I fail, I fail. That's fine. I just go for it.
One thing that I'm always curious about, and we sort of talked about it, it wasn't just with your bake, we're never really massive fans of the huge amounts of dead dough in bread challenges. Was it something where you were looking at it trying to work out, is there a way I can do it with more other bread, and then just went, dead dough's the structural, and that's what we got to do?
So what I did was I went online and I searched the types of bread that's there, right? Because I had no knowledge, honestly. About what types of breads out there. I just know my white breads and, like the really nice fluffy bread. That's all I know. or the grissini, for example. I know only those two.
Like fluffy bread for the mask doesn't quite work.
Exactly, right? So I was like, no, I'm not going to do a fluffy, devil mask. That's not going to look, it's going to look too cute, maybe. I don't know. Or scary, I don't know.
I
in the wrong way.
Why devil mask, though? And then it becomes a thing. It's like this kind of like K-pop devil mask that starts to infiltrate houses and stuff, and people don't want the houses because they're like just so enamored with the cuteness.
Exactly. So actually that might have worked, but you never know. Next time. And then so when I was researching and I was looking through everything, I couldn't picture most of the stuff. It had like loaves and stuff, like, it would have a representation of what that bread was. And I'd visually sort of think about it and I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work. So we were supposed to build in 2 types of breads into that structure. Yep. So I thought, okay, since I'm doing a Sri Lankan devil mask, I might as well put some Sri Lankan, sort of elements into it. Yep. And that's when I came up with the roti tongue, which is the Sri Lankan coconut roti. And I wanted, but that was the only element I could bring in roti for. I didn't feel like any other element would work well with that flexibility.
Yeah.
Exactly. but it's not that's the thing. So it's not as soft to sort of roll it up. That would have been awesome. I know, I remember Rachel mentioning that, but I was like, that would have not worked actually. It's semi-rigid.
Yeah.
If it makes sense.
Yeah, no,
it's like part. Yeah. So somehow I felt like that's not going to work. So so we built in the roti. We built it. I built in the grissini flames, and then I was like, how do I make the face? And then I saw the dead dough element, and then I researched how I'm going to do it and how I'm going to color it. And it's the coloring process that took a lot of time in my trial, and then I realized how I can actually color it much faster. So that's basically how I came up with that concept and sort of developed all the elements into it. But I felt like I agree that with the judges that I should have made a little bit more like edible elements. Yeah. I felt like I could have built in like maybe like a cup sort of element in the back of the grissini and sort of put a little bit more grissini or some other element of bread in it, sort of like a dip in a way that you can sort of, sum
up with something
in the food kind of thing. So you can just take it out and just dip into a sauce or something.
But that's also something that comes with, you'll watch it and you go, next time, if I ever had to make that again for a centerpiece for something, I'd do it this way so you could do this.
Exactly.
And
that's, and you probably like now, like you've got more knowledge of different breads that are out there, and you'll have, if it comes, if you ever
wiser, slightly wiser,
comes to you and goes
bread wiser.
Like I need a bread centerpiece in a mask shape. You're like, I've got you.
Have I got an idea for you? Before I give you your next question, I do also I want to raise one slightly sour point.
Okay,
I have to raise this one slightly sour point with you.
That's okay.
You remain at this point in time.
I'm sorry,
the only baker to use matcha. Now, I've asked this question of everybody. Matcha, of course, is the tool of the devil. And
speaking of devils,
so do you feel a level of guilt and shame? No. No.
And how can I hire you to make a matcha-based devil's mask that I can present to him on his birthday?
Give her an idea now. But I genuinely though, I bring up the matcha thing all the time, but I do find it quite funny that so far you've been the only person to use it twice.
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah, you did.
The cookie, the biscuit.
Yes.
I almost forgot that. Oh my god, yeah, okay. But in my defense, the biscuit flavor was pretty good. It worked so well. I'm sorry if I may say so myself.
No. You can love matcha, okay?
You can love matcha.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I just live someone who's got a desperate hatred for it. Like
I'm so sorry, but you have to give it a try with. I'm so sorry. Just
defend
with me. just try it with either white chocolate or ruby chocolate. It has a different zing to it. It balances its bitterness. I'm so sorry, Chris. I know you're
never apologize. I think this is great advice
because what's your idea?
I'm getting ideas for the mask.
The first time I tried matcha was when I tried a Kit Kat. I don't know if I'm allowed to say.
Yeah. We're not sponsored.
We're not sponsored. No way.
In fact, mention Kit Kat more often. We might get a sponsorship.
So it was a Japanese flavor, I think.
Too.
It was so good. I used to work in Nestle, by the way, when I long time back. And then, sorry. So and that was the first time I tried matcha in anything, literally on its own, even or whatever. That was the first time I tried. I was like, what is this? And it was so good. And I was like, no, I need to make this in something. Or I obviously I never got to try anything because that was over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And this was my first opportunity to actually bake with matcha, because in Sri Lanka, I didn't go through the trouble of having to look for that ingredient. And I wasn't so experimental at that point. It was like, I bake what I know.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, because you are used to a certain set of ingredients and you stick to it when you're, when you're new to something.
Weren't part of a competition that was suddenly forcing you to bake a bunch of things you'd never heard of.
The whole thing. But yeah, apart from cakes. But yeah, but that you have to try it with a ruby chocolate or white chocolate. Or if you can try this green Kit Kat, please try it. Please. It's so good. It's just
I will sort you out, my love.
Your turn.
Can I break this? Can I break
well
this?
done, Galya. I'm very happy about this.
Kristie's delighted with this.
Yeah. So when you were baking in Sri Lanka, I can imagine that, you know, the like every country has different access to different, like, you know, fruits and veg and that and spices and flavors and stuff. Is there anything that you're missing that like you're like or to source it in Australia is really bloody hard? Or
so weirdly, I did try. Okay, so when I was baking, I searched most recipes on Pinterest.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough.
So that's where I learned.
Really common.
Or YouTube, but mostly Pinterest at that point. And most of the ingredients are, well, available worldwide. So I wasn't so experimental again when I was in Sri Lanka. So I wish I was, though. Now I wish I was. Because once I started submitting my what do you call it, creations for the Bakeoff, I realized there's so much I can do with the flavors that I've had in my childhood, not particularly in cakes or desserts, but in general. Like, for example, calamansi. I used to have a calamansi tree back in Sri Lanka, just in the garden, and I had the juice. I enjoyed the juice, but I never tried or thought of adding that in a cake and making that a cake flavor. Yes, I used the rind a little bit just to, you know, sort of set off that egginess of a cake, but I didn't use it as a hero flavor. But I wish I did. And coconut, I don't feel like I did enough with coconut flavors back in Sri Lanka as much. Now I do more.
Yeah.
So I'm quite happy about it.
But I feel like that's a bit of a weird. I think in Australia, I think people still, and it feels weird to say, some people still regard, and there are groups that are probably more traditional in the way they like their cakes, who for them coconut is the exotic flavor. And you get these people who are like, oh, it's a normal sponge, but I'll put a hint of coconut in there for a bit of something exotic. And yeah, I think that's probably why you use it a lot more and also in Australia,
probably.
Coconut's used a lot more in Australian baking than people realise. Obviously, desiccated coconut on a lamington.
A lot.
But like there are lots of
that.
but there are lots of different tarts and things that are Australian.
So now when you go back home to, like, you know, visit family and friends, are you just like, thank you, lovely to see you, can I use your kitchen? I'm going to be baking. Where's your calamansi?
I still have that calamansi tree back at home. I mean, my parents' home back in Sri Lanka. So I'm like, oh, calamansi. I'm praying.
Love you, Mama.
I see the tree. It's so hard to find it here. Like I planted a tree in my garden. Now that I have a garden, I planted in my garden, but it's tiny. But it is giving a few fruits now and then. So I'm thankful for that.
Does that mean had you managed to see Citrus Week that calamansi might have been something you wanted to make an appearance?
Calamansi was one of my planned flavors. Calamansi and coconut was one flavor.
Oh, yeah. Would that be for the signature or what?
That was the signature, yeah. Calamansi and coconut was my favorite flavor out of the two. The other one was dark chocolate and blood orange, which was, I felt like, again, would anyway go in the same lines as Sandra, so probably.
Well, it became a blood orange week, which I was very happy with.
Sorry, which one?
I said it became a bit of a blood orange week, which we were kind of really happy with, actually, because
I think it's awesome. I actually love blood oranges. I think it brings out the vibrant of citrus in its color itself as well. Yeah, I love that. I love that about it.
The other thing that I think has been really interesting about this season, and I wanted to sort of get your take on it too, is the way that the advice gets given out inside the shed, obviously from not only other bakers, but obviously from Rachel and Darren. How did you feel in terms of like some of the way, like one of the things we've said with Darren in particular is he's been pretty good this season at not just saying you need to do this, but gives you the rationale behind if you do this, this is why it's going to work. And does that sort of feedback help, especially when you're learning these brand new sort of bakes and techniques?
Yeah, I mean, both of them gave some really good advice. Like while we're baking, they come and visit us and sort of go through what we're making and sort of have a discussion on that. So they give us good pointers as to how we can improve it if it's not really going the way it should. And they were like, maybe do this, try that. You know, that advice is actually quite useful because that helps us, if we are smart enough to pick it up, that helps us adjust then and there. That's the thing. Sometimes when some of the advice, it might be a little too late to retry. It's either you're giving up the whole bake or you're,
but also like if they're giving you that advice in a context where you're not having to think about 600 different things going on, you can probably sink in.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I think because there's so many other components going on, and if you're going to try correct one thing, you're also giving up something else. So you have to sort of weigh your options and see what's the optimum that you can do at that point.
And you've got that pressure too of they give you that advice, and in your head you can sort of see people at home watching it going, well, they didn't take that. Why didn't they take that advice? Exactly. And we talked to my favorite example of seeing that was season 4 with Jess, where she went home in week 1. And she made a lemon cake, and halfway through she put the cake in the oven.
It was halfway,
and Maggie came over to her and said, it would have been really good if you put a bit more of the lemon rind inside that mixture. And at that point, she made the panic decision to take the cake out of the oven and try to get more of the... She went home. And as she said, in hindsight, I should have gone, that's really good for next time. But where I'm at my process, can't do it now, and just stick with what I had. But that's the pressure of, like, you're in there and you get this advice from someone who's this well-regarded guru, and you're like, I should do that. And then you look at your timings and go, but I can't.
And that's the thing. You have to weigh your options. I mean, I understand when we are watching the show from outside, even myself, to be honest, when I watched it, I was like, why didn't I do that? I'm like, that's what happened. Then I remembered what happened, and then I'm like, then I can explain it to the people in my living room. I can't explain it to everybody else.
Standing on a balcony going, excuse me, everyone, I would just like to point out that in this challenge,
because people don't go into Bakeoff going, you know what, I'm going to deliberately do a shit job.
I'm going to bake terribly. You know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to use any ingredients they tell me to use.
No. I'm just not going to actually bring knowledge into this. It's just going to be throwing flour at things and seeing what sticks.
I mean,
so we've sort of talked about obviously what you sort of consider your favorite bake in there, which is probably the pie. They're one that you never want to see again.
The ice cream pops.
Yep. Cool. Great. Fantastic.
I mean, it's just because I was bad at making the cones. So I mean, and also I tried to do something crazy by adding dark cocoa. Because I wanted to bring in colors, and I'm like, why didn't I just think of something else, like not dark cocoa, and make it?
I didn't think that was crazy at all, by the way. But as a lover of dark chocolate, I was just sitting there going, I'm here. Those were the ones when they went, that's pretty heavy. I'm sitting there watching it going, no, it's not. But
there is a big fan base of dark chocolate. It's crazy. Like, it's comforting though to know.
My only disappointment with that whole challenge was, so when I was a kid, I don't know if you did this as well in Sri Lanka, but when you go to school and it's your birthday, you take a cake into school. I don't know if they can still do it these days. My mum was very clever, and she used to get the ice cream cones that are pre-made that had like a flat base. So instead of doing muffins or individual cupcakes, she'd pour the mixture into those.
I did that very recently, like just last week. I made some cupcakes for one of my friends. It's her daughter's birthday. So I made I just put like all the batter into the flat based cones, like the ready-made ones, and just baked it. And
I'm going to guarantee you there was not a thought in your head of, I'm going to make these cones. You just went, nope. I've been there. I've done that.
No. I wasn't even going to think of it. I was like, no, I don't want to risk that, the whole thing. I mean, I know how to do cake. I'll just focus on that.
Do you want to make the waffle cones? No, I don't want to make the waffle cones. You know what? You can buy some really good waffle cones in the store.
Exactly.
It's fantastic. Exactly. The other one I wanted to raise as well was when they did the family favorite, bake as well. That looked really good. Were you really happy with the way that sort of came out overall?
Flavors, yes. I think because it's something that I used to make I still make very often. Like, it's one of the things that I make when somebody comes over, or if I'm, if one of my diehard chocolate friends are coming over, and then obviously it's one of those obvious options. So, and they love it. It's one of those really nice and rich sort of desserts. It's Yeah, it's almost like a mousse sort of layered into soaked biscuits, but you also have to soak it the right way.
Yeah.
It's got a certain consistency that you have to let it soak. Not too soggy again. Like I remember Darren advising me on that as well, like not to make it too soggy or too crispy and stuff
You're like,
that.
yeah,
But
no, I make these a lot.
exactly. I mean, I've done that, but my only issue in that was I had never baked the biscuits before. It was always store-bought biscuits.
Yeah.
So that was my baking element to my dessert, which I think why that comment came out saying it was a little too simple. I understand that. I think it's the baking element that may have been too simple in a way.
Yeah, see, because my counter to that on the podcast was, but the delicate nature of trying to soak those biscuits to perfection and not over soak them or under soak them, I'm like, that's complicated. So it can look a bit simple, but that's complex. And then they went, you did that really well.
Yeah, they did say that.
And I'm like, no, the complex bit right. But no, I really loved it. I thought that was really cool. And again, it's really hard, especially when you're doing, again, vintage weeks and things like that are really, all of those sorts of things are really tricky when you've got to go back into like what your background is, especially when your background is not a white Anglo-Saxon background in Australia. You've got to sort of do a little bit more.
Like me going to Sri Lanka, going on to, I don't know, the great Sri Lankan Bakeoff.
We don't have that yet, but
not yet, but franchising opportunities.
Bring your favorite flavor from your childhood, like childhood lunch boxes, and I bring Devon and tomato sauce, and they're like, "What the hell is this?" And you're looking at me like, "What the hell is that?" So
that's
hot
what
dogs,
you enjoyed.
Yeah. But do you remember hot dogs and the meat inside them? Essentially, Devon is like a larger kind of sausage that's sliced thinly.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's put on, like, say, white bread with, I wouldn't eat it these days because it'd be so salty and horrendous. And then just tomato sauce on top. That was...
That reminds me, one other thing I wanted to ask about.
Or Vegemite and cheese.
One of them I asked about, we mentioned it on the podcast, but there was a line that you said briefly in there, the Wellington, right?
Yes.
No, what I want to ask is, because you mentioned I don't cook beef at all. Is that
no?
That was my thing, because I'm like, didn't think about that when they're going in there, and I'm like, I don't think Galya uses beef. But the funny part was your beef was cooked perfectly. So apparently, cakes and beef.
Yes, beef. Yeah,
I'm assuming the beef it might be just a little sacrilegious.
But,
yeah, I mean, I'm a Buddhist.
Yeah. So, you're Buddhist? Okay, cool.
Yeah, so in general it says like the advice is not to eat meat, but I do. Yeah. I'm not entirely religious, maybe. But I do eat meat, but I don't eat beef per se.
But fair enough.
So I haven't cooked beef ever in my life. I haven't cooked beef, pork, or lamb. Yeah, and other than chicken or fish or eggs, I haven't cooked anything else.
Because that was something we noted on the podcast. Because like I heard that on the.
I didn't want to make assumptions as well. Because I'm like, God, she could be a bloody, I don't know, like Seventh-day pescatarian or Seventh-day Adventist or like a pastafarian for all I know.
but yeah, I heard that, because I heard that on the episode, and I'm like, they didn't make enough of an issue, a deal about that, in terms of like the fact that the beef was really well cooked, and that was the element of the Wellington they talked about. And they were like, your beef was seared to perfection, and I'm like, did anyone else pick up the other comment? So I thought that was absolutely brilliant of you to be able to do that, especially given that sort of background. So since the show, obviously, what have you been up to in terms of the sorts of things you've been doing? You mentioned as well you're baking a lot, and selling it. So tell us more about that.
So I have a cake designer brand called Sini, which I'm sort of mostly on Instagram, and that's how I sort of talk to my customers. So the handle is sini.au for anyone who wants to follow. And in that, I'm actually doing a market very soon, in another 2 weeks. Nice. I have a market, and here my main intention is for people to try out the flavors that I have. So I get to sort of try out different, like the variety of options that I have as flavors, and obviously, like food art wise. I can obviously share content and people can see what happens, but taste is different. Taste, people have to experience it to understand. Yes. Exactly, experience to understand what it tastes like. So I wanted to sort of try my flavors out in the market and sort of get it out there and get people to experience it. So this is my first time I'm doing a stall for Sini.
Yeah.
And that's in the Rouse Hill Market on the 6th of August, Sunday.
Oh, that's a really good little market there.
The Rouse Hill Market's a really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I've been there. I have never had a stall before, but I've been there because I live close by. Oh, so cool. I thought that's the best place for me to try out and see it. So I'm also hoping that I can do something for Kirribilli. Yeah. And that might be possibly end of August or beginning of September, depending. But yeah.
Wait, I can hook you up with someone at Hunters Hill Council for their events. So yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Gabby, if you're listening, she also listens to Bakeoff quite a lot.
And she listens to the podcast. So.
Yeah. So I'm like, Gabs,
if you're listening,
you know, got another market stall for you.
Well,
that'd be lovely.
What are the chances of the Sandbowl making an appearance? I know not high, but you know, I'll turn up.
Yeah.
Free cake for you, both of you.
Right there, I'm there. Rouse Hill Market, I'm there 100%.
Please come.
Yeah, no, is there any, and just sort of, you know, moving before we sort of wrap it up, is there anything that you didn't really, we talked about, you know, learning new techniques and learning new things. Is there anything that specifically that's sort of stuck with you when you're like, I make this all the time now, or I want to make this a lot more?
Tarts and pies. Because I've never made tarts and pies before the Bakeoff. That was the first time. Well, I tried it once before, obviously, but I didn't. It's not something I'd made before. So and it's stuck. It's with me now. So I'm like, my favorite. I recently tried out. We did Rachel's carrot and cumin cake. That was tart. That was really, really nice. Like the flavors then the shed as well.
Again, when you don't have to worry about, you know, am I layering these correctly? It's so much better.
I mean, no pressure, right?
Exactly.
As long as it tastes good, that's all that matters. So
exactly.
I mean, at home, obviously everybody enjoyed. My friends enjoyed it. My parents enjoyed it. My husband enjoyed it. So it was pretty good. And the flavors, like the flavors of the tart, are really good. I remember it from the day that I tried it in the shed. It was amazing. So I had to try it again. So yeah, tarts are the thing the main one thing that stuck with me after the Bakeoff.
Wonderful. Oh, good. So soon we'll be seeing like Galya's tarts and pies and cake. You'll be able to make a tart mask, a pie mask.
There you go. There's ideas. There's all sorts of ideas.
Different devils in different forms.
Well, there are quite a few that I can mention.
Exactly. Different pie guises. Anyway, thank you so much, Galya. It's been an absolute delight to talk to you. Make sure you check Galya out, obviously, on Instagram.
We'll pop up links and stuff on our socials.
Rouse Hill Markets, as we said, get out there. Come to
Miscellaneous City.
Come to Miscellaneous City and see her there. Thank you very much, Galya, for talking to us. Until next time, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
And we will catch you all later.
Bye.